Happy Halloween.
It's an absurd holiday.
Oh yes, putting on costumes and striking fear. Quite absurd.
All it takes is one bad day.
You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over.
This is not my home. It's an operating table. And I'm the surgeon. Why aren't you laughing?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
Welcome to the Batman Book Club, a podcast exploring the Dark Knight Library. I'm your host, Ryan Lauer. The Batman Book Club is a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network, hosted by Batman on Film. Just go to batmanonfilm.com and click on the link to the Batman Podcast Network for a whole list of other Bat-related shows that also love to dive into other nerdy subjects we all love to frolic about in our free time. The Batman Book Club is also now a member of Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/thebatmanbc if you'd like to help out the show. Thank you for listening to episode number 78, Night of the Reaper, the official kickoff to a month of spooky Batman stories. Now, joining me is no stranger to these here parts. He actually helped me kick off the jumpstart this spooky event last year for the first one. So this is now an annual thing, and I guess it's got to be annual that the sheriff comes to the show and kicks it off each month. It's Ryan Haas. Ryan,
Woo!
Hello, welcome.
Pew, 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 pew. Hello.
I called you Ryan. That's weird. I never call you Ryan.
Oh, it is weird. Yeah, I appreciate it though.
Ryan.
It's good.
It's better than Haas. I think you even
Yeah.
said before, like I was the only one that ever called you Haas, and it was weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very much.
It's good to be here.
Thanks for coming back and kicking this off. We had such a great time last year, and we said, you know what? In 365 days, let's do this again. And I actually don't even know if that was the time we recorded it, but you were the first. So I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah,
feeling good things.
Yeah. It's funny because every time this holiday comes up, like last year and this year, you were asking the Bat Boys like, oh, like we should do this. Should we do this? Make it this annual thing? And some people were saying, oh, you're gonna run out of scary Batman stories, and it just seems like that's really not the case. At first glance, you might think like, oh, you have the Long Halloween, and then you've got like a couple other ones. There's probably one with werewolves or something in it, and then but you start to really look, and there's a lot of spooky supernatural type stories, and you know, Night of the Reaper that we have here is no exception. But I'm just looking here in our like last year's story. I think I have a theme going on here. I kind of like this era, this. Neal Addams, Denny O'Neil era of things. But a lot of these stories in this era are this like 1970s, like Hammer horror inspired. Like you flip through these because I've got this story. I read it on DC Universe Infinite, but I've also got it here now while we record in my paperback Batman Illustrated by Neal Addams, Volume 3. And you just flip through this story, and there's just like werewolves and clocks that strike at midnight and spooks, ghouls. Like most of these stories have like, there's ghosts, like in Detective Comics 408, like the story is the house that haunted Batman. Even the houses are haunting the Batman. You know, like A Vow from the Grave, like, you know, Redwater Crimson Death. That's the one we talked about.
Yes.
Last year,
Batman Brave and the Bold, 93. Yeah. I was trying to find the title, and Redwater Crimson Death, which is one I had never read before. And I thought was
Detective
awesome.
Comics 404, Ghost of the Killer Skies. Like they're all like these spooky type stories.
Yeah.
And in this story at the end of this Neal Addams book too, you have like Moon of the Wolf.
Yeah.
And that got turned into and that's a Lin Wein story, and that got turned into a Batman animated series episode. Really accurately, by the way. All the designs got translated into the animated series. And as a kid, I watched that, I'm like, this isn't like Joker or Penguin or whatever. But then you start to look it up, and you're like, oh, this is actually a adaptation from like a 70s comic. It's really comic accurate.
It's one of the best haircuts any scientist has ever had.
Oh my goodness.
Milo.
Yeah.
Milo and his bowl cut. Yeah,
exactly.
It's funny that you say that, because definitely, sure, we might run out of spooky Tim Sale, Jeff Loeb Batman stories. But the good thing about Batman is that there are thousands of stories, and he has a ton of spooky ones. And I should have looked it up, but I need to write down. Somebody had commented on Twitter, the Batman Book Club's Twitter, with a whole a mini list. Yeah, like a mini list of this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And yeah, there were some in there that I think Pete even had mentioned, like, hey, I need to write these down. I need to go looking for these. And like, yeah, we're never gonna run out. Like, when the Bat Boys are sick and tired of doing this, that's when we might run out.
Right.
But yeah, it's because Halloween's coming next year, and you know what? I think we'll find some stories. So, as I said at the top, the story you chose was Batman number 237. Released in 1971. Written by your man, R.I.P. Denny O'Neil, illustrated by Neal Addams. It was released, obviously, physically. It's been collected in trades and hardcovers. It's on DC Universe Infinite. It's available in those collections on my favorite app, Hoopla. It's available digitally to buy. Mr. Haas, for this episode, how did you read Batman 237, otherwise named Night of the Reaper?
Night of the Reaper. Well, I buried the lead a little bit ago, but yeah, I read this on DC Universe Infinite. I had it in a little folder of like Batman Book Club possibilities. Like since last year, I just had it saved on the little tab, and so I read it that way. But I've also got it here with me right now in my Batman Illustrated by Neal Addams flying through.
Oh my gosh! Guess what?
That I got from Ollie's for $4.
Wait, which one? The hardcover?
No, I got the soft cover.
Oh my gosh! I thought you got the hardcover at Ollie's for $4. Like the hardcover, is a deal for Ollie's.
No, I did. I mean, the one I think I got the other two at Ollie's also for cheap, but they only had the soft cover of Volume 3, unfortunately. Gotcha. But
I had you last year. You actually opened up your copy
I opened
last
it up.
Year.
Yep.
I had you break the seal. It lost all of its value.
But it was so worth it. That's what I should do. I should just do future stories or future episodes of this podcast based off of hardcovers I haven't opened yet.
That's great.
Let's do the Ra's al Ghul saga, the Denny O'Neil Ra's al Ghul saga next.
Yeah, and you can make sure to definitely tear open the plastic right in front of the mic, so we can all experience it. So we both
smell it.
Both read
smell those hard floppies.
Yeah, smell the hard floppies.
Does that work? That's good.
Yeah, so you read it through the soft cover. I, fortunately, have a first printing of the hardcover, which is how I read it. Now, do you possibly remember the first time that you read the story?
Yeah, tonight or before this podcast.
Really? This was the first time you ever read it?
Yes. Yeah. What? To actually read it. Yeah. Because it's been on lists of things for a long time, and it's been on, it's Denny O'Neil, Neal Addams, whatever. But this isn't. It's a pretty iconic cover, and you see it a lot. And it's on lists of, I think on BOF, on Batman on Film, you can find like Michael Uslan lists of like, good scary Batman stories, or like from different eras or periods or whatever. But like this one kind of drops off, I think, because it's not, it's not like the Two-Face story or the Joker's 5-Way Revenge, or it's not one of those. So it's easy to kind of let it go by the wayside. But it's so like the cover is so great, and it's such of that era, and like it's literally on the last year I kind of wanted to do this one last year, because when we looked at Brave and the Bold 93, I was like, well, is this a Halloween story? Does this count? And we read it and we're like, okay, yeah, it totally counts. But on this cover, it literally says it's a haunting Halloween novel.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and of course, like, and as a kid too, like I saw this cover and I'm like, oh, is this related to Batman Year 2? But no.
But no. Yeah, I remember. I'm not surprised
spiritually,
I'll
perhaps.
hold off for a second because I received this this hardcover as a birthday present. In I don't know what year was it. Was this one made? She says 2005. I had to have gotten it in like 2006 or 2007, and I read it from cover to cover. So anything in here. So this was the first time that I read Joker's Five-Way Revenge because that's in here. This is the first time that I read the Ra's al Ghul. Yeah, which one's that called? Oh my gosh, Daughter of the Demon. There we go.
Yeah,
the one that was turned into Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah,
Moon of the Wolf in here. This was the first time I read that. So it had to been. We'll just say 2007 probably was the first time that I read this.
Right.
And now like. You may have already said it, but why did you choose this story when I asked if you would love to take on the pressure of kicking off the spooky month on the Batman Book Club?
Well, the pressure, I feel like my past self saved my future self because the pressure was because when you first asked last year, I came up with a couple of these. So these were on the top of my list, and yeah, so absolutely the reason I wanted to read it was because they got that eternally great Batman duo of Denny O'Neil and Neal Addams, and it's a great era of comics of this kind of storytelling, and that cover is just so magical, and it's a haunting Halloween novel, and it's a single issue, so it's got a lot of great aspects to it.
Like I don't have my list of recent episodes. Of course, I love the long arc stories. I love the long Halloweens and all of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is a breath of fresh air when the homework is one single 22-page story.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I had told you right before we even started recording that this is the first time in a long time that I was like, you know what, I'm going to read this a second time before we even record. And I got to read it twice, and that was just delightful. So thank you for that. And yeah, so now I'm glad that you chose the one you did last year because that was the first time I read that story. I didn't remember much with this one. So yeah, now forget this pressure of this year. The pressure's on for next year. That you've got to deliver something. You just rattled off a ton of stories at the top.
I know there's so many. That's what I should do between this year and next year is read a lot of these stories in these collections and be like, okay, this is good, or this one fits the spooky bill.
This is Laura, how about you just have me on all month long next year? Because I did my homework.
Yeah.
The Ryan and Ryan celebration on the Batman Book Club.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if I read one and hit one that's not spooky enough, be like, let's just do this as a regular episode.
Yeah.
Like you'll see we thought it was a spooky, but it really was a dude in a mask, like a Scooby-Doo. Like half of these Batman stories could also be Scooby-Doo. Why was Denny O'Neil not a writer on Scooby-Doo?
Should have been. Oh, the potential. As great as Scooby-Doo was, imagine an elevated material with Mr. O'Neil on there.
Yeah, for real. Been great.
So I want to give credit where credit is due here, that some of the fascinating parts of the story are kind of the lesser known facts that Denny O'Neil shared in the past and Neal Addams shared in the past. And they were conducted interviews. Maybe they shared them elsewhere, but there's a website, 13thdimension.com, that had interviewed
really
Denny. Yeah, it is. Interviewed Denny O'Neil and Neal Addams and talked about this issue specifically, in which the story takes place in Rutland, Vermont, in where there's a Halloween parade, and that's not the first page of the story. That's the 2-page spread where you see Dick Grayson and 3 others, and they're walking through this big float, which I think is great. In lesser money conscious times, I guess, or character rights times, because you have a blend of you've got Hawkman standing in front of Captain America.
Later on in the story, you've got Spider-Man, you've got Thor, just showing up. Not
Spider-Man, Web-Slinger Teen or something.
Web-Slinger guy, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, Web-Slinger guy. but that's Denny O'Neil. He had spoken that every year around Halloween time really was up in Rutland, Vermont. There was a Halloween parade, and that the comic book guys would go up there and stay at Tom Fagan's mansion, who was owned a publishing company. That's right, up there. And so they would go, and it's funny how O'Neil and Addams both would say that they would do things in the woods. They didn't say exactly what, but definitely sounded like, oh, they drank and maybe had a little bit of fun. And passed out and would wake up with headaches, as Mr. O'Neil would say. But a lot of them would go up and stay in that area each year. It was a known thing. And Denny O'Neil made it into a Batman story, a one-issue Batman story. And I love the fact of this image of who Dick's standing by. From left to right is all the way to the left is Bernie Wrightson. Next to him is Jerry Conway. And then to the right of Dick was Alan Weiss. Now, do you know who Alan Weiss is?
I do not.
I don't either. But the fact that he mentioned him with Wrightson and Conway made me think that, I should know who he is. So that's just like the realistic background part that I think is actually kind of cool, is somehow that was like the basis, almost like the basis of this story. And then O'Neil said that, how was it, Dick Giordano, that wanted the Holocaust brought into this somehow. That
was the Harlan Ellison connection.
Okay.
Who famously wrote the Two-Face episode of Batman in '66 that did not get produced, and is a famous, sci-fi writer. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that was quite the curveball to me. In we're celebrating, so it makes total sense that this would work as a Halloween. I mean, the cover alone says that it would work as a Halloween time story, but then they're at a Halloween parade. In which this Alan Weiss guy, he loves floats. He's obsessed.
Oh my gosh. He's like, floats. Yeah.
But then, there's this, I don't know, is it halfway through? Yeah, halfway through that the doctor tells his story about how he's a survivor of a Nazi concentration camp. It's like, well, this just took a very sad and dark turn.
I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, what a heavy turn. So you knew the basis of the story before reading it?
No, no clue.
Okay,
nothing. No, just that's the thing. A lot of times in this era, you have, it's like a pretty good split of Neal Addams just doing the covers, and then Neal Addams also doing interior art.
Yeah.
So no, like this is a story that I just knew of for a long time, but never actually read. So yeah, it was really fresh actually reading it.
Yes, because it starts out in fun.
Yeah.
Then as Dick and his friends are walking, there's somebody dressed up like Robin getting beaten down with a blackjack, which
I had to look. I was like, whoa, what is that?
Enjoyed these too, because that was in the Joker's 5-Way Revenge story as well.
Right.
And Dick intervenes with his friends because he gets knocked out. Fortunately, Batman shows up because Batman's also in Vermont. And then as
he probably both were,
he takes him to his ally, the doctor. What's his name? Dr. Gruner, in which that's when he reveals his whole. Then the plot comes together of there's at this Tom Fagan's mansion. They're having a big old party, and it's been said that Colonel Kurt Schloss, a Nazi, who Dick instantly says, "I've heard of him." They called him the Butcher. Dr. Gruner said that they really believe that Schloss is going to be at this party. So now it sets things in motion. It's kind of a reach, I think. It's not a very standard Batman story in that regard. But this Nazi is going to be at this party, so then Batman's going to keep his eye out for this party. At this party, meanwhile, here's a Reaper that's killed somebody. Somebody dressed up as Robin has been attacked. We find out that somebody dressed up as Batman has been attacked and killed,
murdered. Yeah.
Then somebody else has been murdered. and then Batman stops some guys in the tower of the mansion, and then Schloss
'cause
gets
they're
blown up
sending-
in his car. All this is happening. It's not easy to put together. So this was a case where a second reading did benefit me, though, to really try to make everything snap together. And I keep talking, so I'm going to let you talk now.
Yeah, like it is. I feel like this. I don't know if it's a combo of like storytelling of comics at the time, plus just the way Denny O'Neil would do these issues. But I felt like there were a lot of storytelling similarities between this and Redwater Crimson Death that we covered last year, in terms of good, like a big opening splash page, like some setup. The story definitely has 3 pretty distinct acts to it.
Sure.
Where, like, you kind of start with Robin, which was interesting to me because I wasn't expecting that. I mean, this is one of those books at the time where it was Batman 237, but this is Batman with Robin the Teen Wonder. You know, they're calling him the Teen Wonder now, not the Boy Wonder.
He is the Teen Wonder.
Yeah, like some of these other issues, like in Detective Comics, you would have like Batman and Batgirl, you know, and they would like team Batman up with his allies and stuff like that. So it starts off with Robin. You're like, oh, where's Batman going to show up in the story, other than the teaser at the beginning telling you, oh, this person looks like Batman's dead. You know, you should be sad. But yeah, like, so it's a pretty interesting setup because it pulls you in different ways. It doesn't read exactly like a modern comic book or whatever, which I think, and again, just like last year's story, you're in like a random off out of the town, you know, like, well, last year's Batman started out like in Gotham, and then Commissioner Gordon sent him off on vacation, you know, out of the country. But and it's the same things here. It's like, okay, we're in Virginia for Halloween, just go with it, you know. And that's not to say that doesn't happen in modern comic. Yeah, or Vermont.
There we go.
VA.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so, and then you throw in other things like Nazis and ghosts and goblins and stuff like that. It's kind of a, it's Harvey Dent. It just shows a lot of, it shows a lot of interesting sides of Batman, and it still shows that he can work, you know, out of Gotham with more realistic, in quotation marks, story setups.
So it's not a typical Batman comic book, but I think that's okay too, because though my comments here of it feels a little loosely connected, these 3 acts, like you'd said, and all these parts, but it also, the second read benefited and it helped things connect better. That I mean, all this is I liked this issue. I like this issue. I think it's a good story with some fun elements. It takes a really hard turn that you don't see coming with the Nazi concentration camp connection. Some of the stuff feels a little scattered and unconnected. Like these 2. So the Reaper has killed some people. Batman takes down these 2 guys that are looking out for the Nazi that's apparently there, which we get one random glimpse of in his little pirate suit get up. He doesn't say any words.
It's informed that, like, you're looking for a dude that's in a pirate costume, but we're not sure why he's there. People are there to seek revenge on him, but we don't know why he was actually there, I don't think.
And he's not even sharing a panel with Batman or anything. It's almost like it feels almost a little like an afterthought of, well, let's go ahead and put him here. In which then, 3 pages later, we don't even see that it's him that gets into the car that gets blown up. But then it's like, that's where these 2 random guys are trying to seek their revenge on this guy, but not in the same way that Dr. Gruner is looking for this Nazi general. So it's also, well, then who the hell are these 2 guys? Which Batman takes down and stops. And so I don't know if we're even supposed to, spoiler alert, in 3, 2, 1, Dr. Gruner is the Reaper. Did it seem obvious to you in reading it before you even got to the revelation? That it was Dr. Gruner? Okay.
No.
And because in reading it definitely the second time too, I'm like, what's the point of the Reaper here? Because the Reaper just has shown up like he's going to attack Robin. He's going to attack Alan Weiss, which, oh my gosh, yeah. he comes up missing, and then he's just out on his own out in the country. Man, that blinking red light on top of the house is cool. Almost as cool as floats.
I know, yeah.
I just love that he's so random. And then, do you dig float? Oh, like all of a sudden there's a body. Hey, do you dig floats? Whoa! And there's the Reaper.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty implied he's on something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know. The inclusion of the Reaper here, not until the end. It's I don't even. It almost doesn't. It's confusing more than Batman's there, because if Batman's in Vermont because of there's a Reaper that's killing people. Okay, well, Batman's there to to take down this murderer and solve this case. That makes sense. But it sounds like he's showing up because a doctor said, "Hey, at this party, I heard that this Nazi general likes to play dress up and go to parties." And Batman says, "Okay, I'll get him."
Mm-hmm.
And then the Reaper just so happens to show up. So it almost feels like it couldn't be anybody else but Dr. Gruner.
Yeah, like that. That's the setup. That's the red herring. Yeah.
By the end, but I say that, and I know it doesn't necessarily sound harsh or anything, but it ends up working. And I think maybe the most terrifying image that Addams even draws in this entire issue is the one of the little glimpse of the concentration camp with the general and the whip,
yeah,
the barbed wire.
Yeah.
Like that's disturbing, and not in a fun horror sort of way. That's like, ugh. So let's talk about Neal Addams.
I guess that's part of it. Is a lot of people want to get the Nazi general. I guess he's laying low, except for going to Halloween parades. But there were two different parties chasing him, and the doctor told Batman. But then he decided, you know what? I'm just going to do this myself, and also dress up like a Reaper and kill anybody that gets in my way.
Yeah,
he just kind of snapped at the end
after Dr. Gruner confesses to Batman and it's revealed it's him, and the Batman says there's not enough water in that stream to wash the guilt from anyone who presumes to take the life of another. That's a tough debate, a tough conversation for someone who survived a concentration camp, to tell them to try and say that they can't seek revenge on a Nazi general who was in charge at that camp. Oof. It's weird then how that became a mandate for O'Neal to insert into a Batman story, is to write a story with the Holocaust and then basically do the back half, and actually ends up being like 4 pages worth of story talking about this very layered and deep subject, which we're talking about in 1971. Right. So not even 30 years after the Holocaust.
Right.
Like that. I don't know. That can be heavy stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely heavy, but I think the reason he has it, I mean, other than just he tries to bring it back to Batman on the next page, where like Batman's like, I lost my parents to evil too, but he's got to do the classic Batman thing of like, well, let's not kill people, even if it's a Nazi concentration camp guy. Yeah. I guess it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a debate to be had there, but I see what the intent is behind it.
Yeah.
And I love some of the dialogue. There's some, like last year's story in Redwater Crimson Death. There were some really good bangers of lines. There's great ones in here too. When Batman's talking about the Reaper, he's strong with the strength of madness. There's good stuff.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, so when Bill was on a few months ago and we did Joker's Five-Way Revenge, there were some good O'Neill bangers in there too. He could whip up some pretty decent phrases.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I didn't say.
Some of the... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I didn't say, for anyone who doesn't know, it's page 12 of the issue that inside the party, that is Denny O'Neill in the cowboy hat. Yes. It says, "Mind getting off my foot." Speaking to Thor. And then, behind him is Webslinger Lad. There we go.
There you go.
Webslinger Lad is talking to Batman.
And it's funny, that not only is that Denny O'Neill, but that's a conversation that in interviews, and he even told me when I interviewed him about that whole, like, people would ask you, "What do you do for a living?" And he's like, that's a really, he's afraid. He didn't want to tell people that he wrote comic books because he was afraid that people would say what Thor says here. "Oh, that's a dumb way to make a living." You're right. Those silly things, those comic books.
Yeah. They really showed Denny O'Neill, huh? Fools. So I mentioned briefly with Neal Addams, what can we say that has never been said about his art before? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
He knows how to construct a cover, which he breaks down in that 13th dimension.
Yeah, interview. I like it when
really interesting.
Talks about the composition, the A shape, and the red colors in particular. He's got some other good breakdown descriptions of other covers, like the classic Ra's al Ghul one on 13th Dimension too. So
and on I think with DC, he said it was almost a rule of don't do the horror, imply it's going to happen. So with that cover, that it's basically like, this is what we see 2 seconds before the bad image happens, to where DC's not doing it. It's us as the readers that are doing this. And that's the great tease, which I think is also great, because here we find out, and I miss the days of the covers are, first of all, matching the art inside of the story, and then also is directly related to the story. And there's almost an exact image. It's replicated in the story with the Reaper standing over Robin. He's raising
there are tons of that is quintessential comic book cover stuff. Like when I was a kid and I would read, or just I have some reference books that have like just pages of covers. You just see the cover and imagine what the story could be. You know, I love those kind of comic book covers.
And this definitely, I mean, it delivers. And on that front, on the cover, you're like, oh my gosh, the Reaper's going to try and slice Robin in half. Hey, you get halfway through the story and the Reaper tries to slice Robin in half. So thank you, Neal Addams. But in the reprints of this, I would love to see, I mean, obviously with a lot of older stories, I would love to see an original issue and see what the coloring looked like, because these Neal Addams,
this Batman is one that I did not. Yeah, this is not the one that I got, because last year's there's a big difference between the original and the recolored, all remastered, recolored versions. So it probably is quite different.
It looks pretty. I really like the coloring in this collection, but I would be very curious on how they play with, I mean, just the opening page, and how there is a blend of pink, purple, and blue as a background with a somewhat fainted yellow on the moon, and then Batman's blue is popping in front of that in the tree, and I know all this is extremely nerdy, but it'd be interesting to see how are the colors on its original, because it's striking now in a very good way.
Well, like in the original, in that 13th Dimension article, you see like the Denny O'Neill shot, and like he's got like a brown suit in the recolored version, and in the original version he's got like a purple suit. So they've changed some, and there's generally more shading. Like in the room that he's in the original, it's just like green drapes and yellow everything, and they've actually colored more of that, and there's more a little bit more depth to it in the recolored.
Yes, I'm pulled it up now. I'm looking.
Yeah, I wish I had the original to do more comparisons, but it's a kind of a slightly pricey issue at this point.
Shout out to Straight Outta Gotham. Old Solomon Grundy makes a nice little cameo here on one of those floats. One of those amazing floats. I bet Pete has this issue.
Ooh, I found what the... this is not interesting for readers or listeners, but I found what the opening page looks like. I can put it to you here in the chat. It's pretty.
Do that, and I'll tweet it out once this episode drops. We'll put that out. I'll put that out too.
Yeah. It's like a purple sky, flat color. Because that's usually generally So like in the original, it's just a flat purple sky. This bright purple to imply night.
Purple.
But here in the recolored, you get the. It's like a darker blue that transitions into the purple. So generally, and like even the Night of the Reaper is like one solid color in the original, and it's got a little bit more of a gradient to it in the recolored. So that's generally what you see in a lot of these more modern day stuff. You get more shading and texture, like the moon's got the moon texture on it, and it's just a flat color in the original. And like there's more of a stark white on the tree, and the tree is like a flat blue versus like the more brown. It'd be interesting to get some sort of comic historian take on this, because I'm sure there are some people that are like, why the hell are you redoing art like that? Like, no, or give us the option of having the original.
Well, it makes me wonder for sure, especially because Neal Addams has been very he's like a businessman with his own work. Did he recolor them? I'm kind of that's what I'm wondering is how much say did he have in this Batman Illustrated collection, because I feel like he would have to have some kind of say. And with that, did he recolor it? Did he approve of it? Was this just DC doing it
Batman
themselves?
Illustrated in the front? I'm looking at the Batman Illustrated by Neal Addams Volume 3. It says interior color by Continuity Associates, Snow Cone, and Jameson Services. So it seems to have been a company that does this, like a colorist company that redoes things.
Interesting if he would.
It's rewriting history in a way, but it's also kind of like things that happen with video games. Like it's a remaster, it's like, well, when this game came out, we could only show textures at a smaller resolution, and we've just changed the textures, or you can see it with better resolution now. We have better technology.
All of it will have its fans.
It's a fine line.
All of it will have its critics. So
yes.
I like
there's
what
pros
I see
and cons.
Here. Yeah, I like what I see here. I'm sure there would be some panels that I disagree with and others that I would agree with. So
yeah, that's what was so fun last year, because I had like 4 different versions, and you could be like, oh, it's cool. I can see it's cooler in the original, or it's way better in the in the redone.
Well, I didn't even mention, I said art by Neal Addams, but it says Dick Giordano is also credited. I wonder how much involvement he had.
Did the inking.
Oh, because I mean, is that just sort of umbrella-ing? There we go. All of it, because used to be, or usually is, inkers get their own credits now too.
Right.
So I'm curious there, and
it's just
what Giordano's
a blanket art
here. Whereas this
probably inks,
art, story, and then edited. And then From an Idea by Bernie Wrightson with an assist from Harlan Ellison. So there you go. Covered all tracks. This is enjoyable though. There's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun, and there's actually a lot of horror, and then there's a lot of too real horror also involved. But
a few people die in this, like legit. So
I'm curious. I've never come across, and maybe it's just been staring me in the face the whole time, if this gave any kind of inspiration for the Year 2 story.
I mean that's what I was saying earlier. I don't know if it's just the fact that it's the Reaper, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a pre-existing thing, and it's a pretty iconic cover and iconic, duo. Even by the time that that Batman Year 2 would have come out, right? So it is pretty interesting. I wouldn't doubt that it might have had some sort of late.
Because I know some people want to credit Mask of the Phantasm with Year 2, and it's like we'll take it one step further of Year 2. Now look at Night of the Reaper, and so it's all connected.
I should have asked Mike Barr when I had him sign my Year 2 issue.
You should have. You really dropped the ball there.
Did you copy Denny O'Neil?
You know what? Do not sign my book.
How about I just rip up this comic? How about that?
Yeah, and then I'll burn it.
You call me Mike R. Barr. My middle initial is W. You piece of crap.
R stands for hope. Is there anything else you want that we didn't touch on? I know this was a quick story, a quick discussion so far, it feels like, but I mean, only Ryan's can be 40 minutes in and say,
oh, I know. I found another image of the Reaper himself.
You're hearing it live, folks.
Yes, hearing it live. Reaper attacks Robin. Here we go. Copy image address. Ooh, we're going to paste and go to this.
Did you say ooh or
this is a good...
Sorry.
Ooh, Ooxus.
Ooh.
Yeah, Ooxus is not in this story.
That's actually what Jack Nicholson said in Batman 89. And they
I know, we just cut too early.
Ooxus.
Yeah.
They're like, nah,
wow, that's a pretty... So the page 8 in the recolored is a stark difference between the original. In the original, the background is just a flat blue. Mm-hmm. And in the recolored, it is this white with all of these red accent lines around it. And a glowing red eyes, which is a better change in the recolored because the glowing red eyes was like a story point elsewhere in the story. So I don't know. I just love this stuff. It's so fascinating to kind of compare the two.
I don't know. I think I like the blue background. I think more than
I do too. I think this is definitely one of those stories where if you have the original, with that like tactile newsprint like paper, like that would really get you kind of into the story pretty well, I think. But hey, I think either one is, as long as you're reading the story, that's kind of you're doing good.
For sure. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on?
I mean, overall, I just think that this is a really cool story, and it's one that it takes a lot of skill for a comic book writer to take some sort of like what could be perceived as like a self-indulgent thing. It's like, oh, let's just take this thing that we do as like real people and turn it into a story, and hey, throw in put some Holocaust stuff in it and give a bunch of people cameos and put a bunch of like superhero cameos from other publishers in it and stuff. A lot of like on the surface, self-indulgent type of like stuff, but be able to make a really, compelling comic book story out of it. Mm-hmm. That's really impressive. And then you put Neal Addams art on top of it. Then you just got like a really cool, really cool Batman story.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like on the surface, the story that is teased on the front it delivers. It's a cool story. It's fun that they're able to incorporate, their inside jokes, like we do with the Batman Book Club. How many things do we drop that are kind of inside jokes, and it's just fun. It's hopefully not too much of a distraction. And what Danny O'Neil said in that in that interview too, that for those in the know who read it, it might take them out of the story for 1 or 2 minutes, but I mean, that part's fun. And then to also bring in, real horror as motivation, it can connect. A lot of these loose ends, they can connect in the end of that. It makes it for a good, pretty strong 22-page story. So well done, Denny O'Neil. Because I'm sure if he were still with us, he would be so relieved that I gave him a thumbs up.
I know.
All right, the Batman Book
thanks.
Club said that they approved Batman 237.
Right, read the reviews. yeah. I'm interested to. I'll be on the lookout for this to see if I can pick it up at a decent price at some point, so I can.
What would be your top dollar?
Compare. Oh, I don't know. $87.
I was gonna say 80. Would you pay 80 for it? So okay, now we
depends
know
on the
87.
condition. Depends on the condition.
It's very.
I do have. I've got a Batman 181.
Ooh.
So it's in decent shape.
Ooh.
That's the first appearance of Poison Ivy, if you didn't know. Yes.
Okay.
I'm no Pete Vera. I'm no Peter R. Vera with his first Uxas appearance.
First Uxas, first Apocalypse, first who else you got?
New Gods.
New Gods, first first Black Mask, you name it.
Mm-hmm. First ventriloquist. That's what he bought for Batman Day, I believe.
He did. Good for him. Let's hop into some favorites. Mr. Ross, do you have a favorite part of Batman 237?
Ooh, favorite part of Batman 237. I just think that whole sequence where Batman tracks down the Nazis looking for Colonel Schloss and diverts it and it escapes. Well, it has to warn and then like escapes from like the car explosion. That's that whole sequence is a very like 1970s James Bond Batman kind of like feel and scenario to me. And I just think that those kinds of things are pretty cool. And then you get some cool Batman and Robin interaction afterwards. So
yeah, that's cool. I mean, not my favorite part, but I'll say that that's really cool. I do love how they break up the panels of the flashing Morse code light, and then we get a panel of black, panel of action, panel of black, panel of action. Like that part's pretty fun to me. That seems a little cinematic and something that would be a really cool element in a horror movie, even, you know, and effective. So that part's pretty cool. For me, mine might be actually the Robin's discovery of the dead Batman, which turns into the confrontation with the Reaper. I think that's kind of some good horror element that I can almost see in my see it play out in my head and stuff like that. That's some good atmosphere building, and I think it's effective. So that's probably my favorite part.
And that is kind of because I was reading that whole sequence too when he's discovering that, and a lot of that. You know, we're covering some issues in 90s issues of the Tim Drake series on Everyone Loves the Drake podcast. And a lot of the same kind of setup happens where Tim Drake or Robin, I should say, like Robin is having to stop or, you know, solve mysteries while he's not Robin, but has to kind of use his skills, but not be too good because he doesn't want people to suspect who or figure out who he is. So it's pretty cool to see that kind of same setup already in play here, you know, in the 70s with Dick Grayson.
Absolutely. How about a favorite panel?
My favorite panel, I think I will pick the opening splash page. Just that whole, because it's indicative of this whole era where you get like a really cool like opening page to the book with all of the text and the setup and the Night of the Reaper logo and just the full page spread of like, oh no, is Batman dead? What happened? You know, the good shadowing and good everything. I mean, it's just a really cool page that just gets you right into the story.
I am with you. Written down in my notes. Mine nice. Too. I do love that. It creates a mood. It creates a mystery. I'm intrigued. You're drawn in because like somebody has nailed Batman to a tree. Uh-oh. What's going on here?
And they told us he wasn't moving. It was lifeless.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good, strong image to open up to. Of course, the Reaper standing over Robin is a good honorable mention. But for me, Batman stands out. Would you like to see this animated in adaptation?
I think this would make a really cool like DC showcase like short. You know, I really do. Like this fits the bill of those. I think in a lot of ways too. just with the tone, the way that and there's obviously a lot of things they could change or kind of, I don't want to say tighten up, but kind of change some of the things in the adaptation from between things, because I think this whole like 70s era Batman thing is a kind of a cool untapped era of translation. Like you got some cool like what 50s and 60s type of vibe with Brave and the Bold. And we've I think the closest we've seen was what was it, Batman Soul of the Dragon?
Soul of the Dragon, yeah.
I think more more stuff like that. I think that's a really cool Batman era that you could not just copy 1-to-1, but make kind of new stories with that kind of same vibe. I think would be kind of a neat thing to do. And gosh, every time you ask these questions on these shows, I just think of when I got to interview James Tucker, because he was there for both the Wonder Woman Bloodlines and Batman. It wasn't for Batman Hush. It was Wonder Woman Bloodlines. Oh, and Batman Beyond, 20th anniversary Batman Beyond. But I got to talk to James Tucker about like, well, what other Batman movies are coming or could you make or whatever. And he's always said like, I just want to do like a series that, like an anthology series where like a Legends of the Dark Knight or something, where like every episode you could do Elseworlds, or you could do a 70s story, or you could do a 60s story, or you could do an 80s story, and you could change up the tone and that'd be your opportunity to do like a straight up adaptation of a book, or make a new story with like existing, vibes or eras or whatever. And I thought that would be so cool. Like just make like Legends of the Dark Knight the series, and you could have different Batman voices. You could just do all kinds of crazy like stories that way, because Batman is so malleable, and they totally do a lot of that in Batman the Brave and the Bold, but a more like I don't know, adult or more wide-ranging spin on that concept I think would be really cool, because
I wonder if they have to,
a lot of times
would feel like they'd have to change the motivation of Dr. Gruner, because at this point we're at 20, not that you should ever forget or anything like that, but if it's a story that seems like it's taking place now, that couldn't.
Well, that's the thing. Like if you had
made it take place in the 70s, would it still be like, oh yeah, and it would still be effective to wrap your head around that? I don't know.
Yeah, because we have a lot of stories nowadays that still use World War II as like an inflection point. We have Justice Society World War II. We have
exactly.
A lot of the shorts have that's why they made me think of the shorts, because a lot of the shorts that we have in the DC animated films like still take place around that time period, and use it to their advantage,
Yeah.
So that could be no different if they ever did.
Hop to it, James Tucker. I know you're listening, pal. Come on.
Yeah.
Mr. Haas, do you have any final thoughts on Batman 237, Night of the Reaper?
I just think it's another feather in the cap of great Neal Addams and Denny O'Neil stories. Like, what more can you say? Like, it just checks all the check boxes, and it just happens to be a cool Halloween, spooky related story.
Agreed.
Hopefully, I can find another one.
Copy paste. Yeah, pressure's on now. It's. I said it earlier. It's definitely on now. The pressure's there. I agree. It's atmospheric. It's cool. It's got great cover, great mood. There is like a horror figure. There's a real life horror in there, and I think it's just a fun, semi-quick read. If you've lasted this long and haven't read it, track it down, give it a read. It will be a treat. It'll be a treat. So there you go. Whew. All right. Well, that wasn't too shabby. Kicking us off. Pete's got to follow this up. So I hope he does his homework and he delivers, because you have set the bar high, Mr. Haas. Nice. Thanks again for coming on. Thanks for kicking this off. Thanks for picking another good story. Thanks for making it a one-issue story. If there are any listeners who would love to follow all of your incredible feats, how can they do that these days? These days, you can just follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan.
The SMB stands for Super Mario Brothers, and as in the movie, the 1993 movie, the good movie, not the new one that isn't out yet, but will be eventually. And you can find that website, the Super Mario Brothers Movie Archive, on Twitter at SMB Movie. Talked about the good old Robin, Everyone Loves Drake comic podcast that you can listen to and follow on Twitter at ELTD Podcast. And of course, the Batman Podcast Network is also on the Twitter at BatPod Network.
Excellent. What a year for the Marios. What?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
What a year. The Lost Mario brother,
we came out with the dang extended cut of the movie, then they had to overshadow it with announcing the
it's okay. Nobody's forgotten.
Oh, there's the cat.
You did. There he was.
Cat cameo.
55 minutes in, 56 minutes in. Whew! I was really drawing this out, just waiting for him to
I know.
to shout out here. So it was Mario. Just had to mention the Marios, and then he comes out of the woodworks. Yep, sure does. As for the Batman Book Club, you can follow on Twitter and Instagram at thebatmanbc for upcoming episodes, latest episode drops, and sometimes even some giveaways. The whole list of what we're covering this month has already been released on Twitter, so just go there and check it out. You can also check out the Batman Book Club on YouTube, where I've got some quick reviews up and hopefully have some more and some other things coming in the near future. You can write into the show with questions or comments. Concerns, go to Eric Holzman at thebatmanbc at gmail.com. May start reading some questions one by one or something on future episodes, so go ahead and write in. If you'd like to support the show, you can do it in a variety of ways. First off, like I already said, patreon.com/thebatmanbc. If you want to support the show through some merchandise on TeePublic, you can do that in the TeePublic store. But if you don't want to spend any money at all, that is 100% A-okay. You can do that with Apple Podcasts rate and review page. The link to that page is in the description of this episode. The more reviews the Batman Book Club gets, the more it helps
the better.
Batman Book Club. Yeah. And as we all know, well, it helps spread the word. And I screwed it up. See, I went off track. The more it helps spread the word, and as we all know, the word is
panic.
So, for Ryan Haas, I am Ryan Lauer. And until next time, read more Batman comics.